Super. Once again, hi everyone. Thank you for joining to this webinar this evening. We are a little less a smaller group this evening, but it's still a fairly considerable crowd. So thank you for coming. We will have once again 3 of our focus group teachers of the European Film Factory project with us to present the kit that I hope that you see in the screen, because Teams seems to have an update, and yesterday it was giving us some trouble. Hopefully this time it will be much smoother, but let's see, and we will do our best to make it through the session. It's going to be about a special day. We will look at it through a historical perspective, and without further ado, I will pass it on to my colleagues, Anna Maria, Andreas, and Rafal. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. So I think I'm going to start. I've got this honor and privilege to start this webinar, which we prepared with my colleagues Anna Maria and Andreas. And today we want to talk about a special day, just like Eray said. And we want to focus on that movie through historical perspective. Before we're gonna start, I just want to say how grateful we are that you are here and you find time to meet us. We know you are probably after your classes and you just craving for some time to relax, and you decided to stay with us and learn more about European film factories. So we are really grateful for that. For us, this project is really important because we truly believe that through movies we can communicate with young people, and this is the popular way of communication right now. The books are not so popular currently, so we should focus on movie. And probably all of you know that European Film Factory is a platform where you can find a lot of interesting movies, and those movies were selected by specialists, so they're really, really good ones. And for every movie, there is a special document, educational kit, where you can find a lot of information about directing, about movie language, and about circumstances and historical background. You can find there everything you want. After you read it, you're gonna be experts, and you're gonna know everything about the movie. At the end of educational kit, there is some ideas of activities, and you can apply it the way you find it there, or you can use it as a inspirations to your classes. Okay, I think that's the end of the beginning, and let's focus on a movie, a special day. In that special day, so when you look at the platform, you'll see many movies, and some of them has historical background. And can I ask for another slide? Oh, thank you so much. So you'll find Goodbye Lenin, 1208 east of Bucharest, to Europe, Diary for My Children, and Persepolis, and of course, A Special Day. And those movies use history just as a background, and that background highlight the characters of main people in that movie, and also it helps to understand their choices. I think that when viewers see accurate depiction of clothing, settings, technology, and cultural norms, it can help them connect with the story and characters on a deeper level. This can make the movie more engaging and immersive. Historical movies have the power to educate and to raise awareness about past events, people, and cultures. They can serve a valuable tool not only for teaching history, but for other subjects as well. And by presenting historical events and figures in entertaining and accessible way, movies can help people gain a better understanding of the past. Historical movies can provide inspiration by highlighting the achievements, struggles, resilience of people in the past. And even if a movie is primarily intended for entertainment, a well executed historical background can add depth and richness to the story, making it more enjoyable for audience. And let's see how it is in practice. Can I ask for another slide? So as we know, today we're going to focus on a special day, the movie with historical background as well. This is Italian movie made in 1977. And in this drama, you can find a lot of themes which you can use it during your classrooms, such as loneliness, gender constructions, fascism, human rights, ostracism, homosexuality, and many, many more. Because the movie is pretty interesting, and the movie lasts almost 2 hours. But what I can suggest you and ask you, it's not to divide in parts, because the tension between two main characters is really important, and you can lose it when you're gonna when you're gonna show it in 2 or 3 parts. I know that it's more than 2 or 3 class hours, but still I think it's worth staying longer, or ask colleagues to give you some time. Of course, the movie is in Italian, but on European Film Factory platform, you're gonna find a lot of subtitles in many languages, so you can change it very easily. Thank you. Can I ask for another slide? So what's the movie about? The movie presents the day of 8th May 1938, when Italians take part in a public event to greet Hitler, who visits Mussolini to strengthen his partnership with Italy. Uh, I'm not the expert in history, but from the movie and from what I could see, um, the Italians were really waiting for that moment, and that was really important moment for them. They prepared clothes, they prepared costumes, they prepared banners and flags, and they were waiting for that moment. They were really happy to be a part of this parade. And Thanks to that event, we can meet two characters. Can I ask for another slide? We have two main characters. The first one is Antonietta, played by Sophia Loren. She's a housewife with 6 children. She's a really strong woman who tries to cope with everyday's problem, and she doesn't think too much because there's a lot of things to do, and she has, as we can see, 6 children. And the second main character is Gabriel, played Marcello Mastroianni. He's a single guy. He works as a radio announcer. Both of them live in a big flat, and when the 8th of May came, all of the residents decided to take part in parade, but Antonietta and Gabriel decided to stay. Of course, they decided to stay from different reasons. Antonietta wanted to relax and take a deep breath and just to be with herself. And Gabriel decided to stay because he's not a fan of fascism, and his idea of the word is totally different than the idea of Hitler and Mussolini. Gabriel, he's a homosexual, and he's like having really bad time, because at the beginning we can meet him as a really depressed man. They both decided to stay in a flat, and by accident they gonna spend that special day together. Okay, can I ask for another slide? Yes. So even though Antonietta and Gabriel don't know each other, they, yeah, here for a second, they spend their day together discovering things about each other. So this is the story, but thanks to that historical moment, we can learn more about our characters, about their ideas, about their way, about their look of the words, because thanks to that historical moment, they are alone in a flat and they can be truly themselves, and they can share their truly true colors. And the parade, it's not the only historical thing in that movie, because even when we focus on that plot as a background, we all the time hear what's happening on the street, because the radio is on, and all the time we hear what's happening with the greeting Hitler. Okay, can I ask for another slide? The director of that movie is Ettore Scola. He's an Italian screenwriter. Yeah, I love that movie too, Emma. Uh, and a social satirist, film amateur, and he studied law, and he was a journalist, but he decided he wanna be a screenwriter, filmmaker, producer, and director. His first film was Let's Talk About Women, and it was in 60s, and he directed 27 films. A Special Day is one of his most famous, and the movie received the Best Foreign Language Film Award at Cannes Film Festival. Uh, okay, can I ask for another one? Uh, it's really important that the movie was made in 70s, because in 60s and in 70s we have a lot of important things happening in Italian cinematography. First of all, we can feel the spirit of freedom and experimentation, and the second is that we can find like very strong um, influences of Pasolini's work and Fellini's work. From Pasolini, even in this movie, we can find the sexuality and desire, and between that two characters, we can feel it as well. And from Fellini's movie, we can find in here a tradition of nostalgia. So when we look at that movie, we can find that calmness and peaceful. I know that the tension is growing, but still it's somewhere there is a deep feeling of nostalgia. And also in that movie, you can find the look at Italians' relationship with their past, and what's important, myth of resistenza. That two things are really important, especially because of the biography of the director. And can I ask for another slide? Um, and the director depicts this particular day because he also lived himself as a child. And that myth of Resistenza and that myth of Hitler visiting Italy was really important, and also was elaborated by Scola in his another movie. So I think that's it from my side about the beginning. And I think, Andreas, the floor is yours.
I can take it from here. Thank you,
Thank
Rafael.
you.
And after hearing Rafael presenting general information about the movie and the context of the film, which is one of the most important films of Torre Scola and of Italian cinema of the 1970s, let's dig a bit deeper into the historical context of the film, since today's webinar is devoted in addressing the film through historical perspective. As Rafael mentioned earlier, the special day, the day that gives the title to the film, is the 8th of May 1938. Actually, it's Hitler's first visit to Italy to visit Mussolini in an attempt to strengthen his partnership with Italy, and they become partners now on. So the film is an excellent way to teach students about fascism and its ties with Nazis. In the beginning of the film, we have actually archival footage of the cinema journals, and we will get back to that later on, giving us glimpses and pictures from fascist Italy of the time. Fascism was one of the totalitarian regimes of the time that wanted to make Italy, to remake Italy and the Italians. And to do that, the main purpose, as Mussolini said, was that all components of society, economy, culture, would have their own autonomy, and they won't be influenced by other civilizations. And to do that, fascism had two ways. First of all, mass media, cinema, radio, newspapers, no internet at the time, for propaganda, creating a mythology and the symbols that the regime used. At the beginning, the fascism didn't base itself on the anti-Semitic and anti-racial ideology that Hitler was using at the time. But the situation changed in 1938 when Hitler and Mussolini started to collaborate. It is this year exactly that fascism embraced anti-Semitic laws to show solidarity with Hitler and Nazism. The fascism didn't exclude from society only Jews, just like in Germany, but also other social groups like homosexuals, disabled people, gypsies, and others who didn't have the characteristics to comply with the myth of the masculine, strong, real Italian man model as explained by Mussolini. Can we have another slide, please? And so throughout the movie, we have a lot of symbols and elements and features of the Italy of the time. And this can help us visualize the era, not only visually, but even with the audio. In the beginning of the film, we have some archival footage, as I said, which is an example of cinema journal, often projected in Italian cinema theaters before screenings, that presented the myths of fascism, rituals, symbols like the myth of leader Mussolini, who was an omnipresent, young, virile, immortal, energetic man. The myth of the particularity of the Italian nation, or the myth about the strength of Italy and the Italian army forces. And this archival footage, which is the beginning of the movie, brings us into the atmosphere and the climate of the era in which those two special characters live in. Other symbols that we can see throughout the movie are fascist Italian flags and flags with swastika, referring to the collaboration between Italy and Germany during the Second World War. And also we have the extensive use of radio in that era with propaganda purposes. The very characteristic feature of the film is that throughout the film, a constant soundscape, a constant soundtrack, apart from the dialogue between the main character, is the transmission, the live transmission of the arrival of Hitler and the celebration and the public event that all Italians, almost all Italians, went to celebrate. We can also see the main character Antonietta having a scrapbook filled with photos from newspapers of the time with fascist quotes about women's role and about real Italian men and so on. And for Italians, there is also another interesting element, the importance of language, because during fascism, Italians had to use the second person plural in formal conversations instead of the third person singular, considered to be an influence, a foreign influence that fascism detested. And moving on to the next slide. let's talk about the expressive means used to convey all these messages and all those historical information in the movie. One of Ettore Scola's, the director's characteristic element in his directing style is that he usually uses a specific place as a micro-history place, a small version of history. And in that case, in a Special Days case, this building is Palazzo Federici. It was a building built in the 1930s, a typical condominium of fascist architecture and urbanism. And to depict the sense of confinement of the characters, the claustrophobia that the fascist ideology and regime was forcing upon them, the director, together with the director of photography, Pasqualino De Santis, used very tight frames to put emphasis on the difficulties and the impossibility of freedom and the escape. In the beginning of the film, the camera shots the building from a very low angle, giving the sense of a dominance, imposition, like the way Mussolini himself was shot during the propaganda films of the era. And there are even references to Hitchcock's films. Ettore Scola was a very cinephile director. He has references to the opening scenes of Hitchcock's Rear Window and Psycho, with dolly shots passing through the exterior and entering the private apartment of the era. Scuola continually tries to break the theatricality of the space, since the whole movie is confined in the apartments and the building, the Palazzo Federici. It could be a very theatrical movie, but Scuola finds ways not to create not a filming theater, but a theatrical cinema, let's say. So we are cinema viewers, and the editing and the mise en scène are helping him towards that in that sense. We have even a very interesting scene on the rooftop of the building, where supposedly we have the open air. We have the sense of air and atmosphere, but there is the exterior of the building, but there are flapping sheets that the main character has washed, and they are hang to dry, and they give the sense of confinement experienced by the characters even on the open air. The cinematography is really interesting because it is color desaturated. There are not a lot of colors. The cloudy sky, the gray color which dominates the shots, they give a very gloomy, a very depressive atmosphere, conveying all the emotions and the sentimental situation of the two main characters. So the two main characters, which are the protagonists of the film and which are the main reason to watch the film and get related to the drama they both live. We have a woman and a man, a typical woman of the time, and not so typical man of the time. Played by Sophia Loren and Marcello Mastroianni. We have the constant radio sound throughout the film, transmitting the sound of Mussolini's grandeur. He's giving a speech, he's talking to the public, he's talking about the myth of Italy, and this is commented on ironically and contrasted by the very low tension, the melancholic situation of the characters, their loneliness, the emptiness of the building. It's almost as they are the only ones left alone in Italy that do not share Mussolini's vision. And the fact that these two characters, these two main characters, are played by two of the most well-known and famous actors of Italian actors of the time, gives the film a very special touch, because both Sophia Loren and Marcello Mastroianni are playing roles that are against their star images. Marcello Mastroianni used to play the very virile and Italian Latin lover of the time, and now he's in Special Day, he's a gay, politically subversive man who does not belong to heteronormativity. He experiences the exclusion. He's not the perfect man of what would constitute the male identity of the fascist era. On the other hand, Sophia Loren is not at all the sexy actress, the diva that we associate with her, with beauty and power. She's a humble housewife, unaware of her desires, not satisfied with her life, subjugated to a fascist man who is the complete opposite of Marcello Mastroianni's character. And the meeting of the two characters is the focus point of the film. So we have two people, two simple people of the time, meeting together, exchanging feelings, problems, difficulties amidst fascist festivity, and they are left alone. They are left outside of this festive atmosphere. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Yeah. So the film can be used not only to talk about historical perspective, fascism, and its ties to Nazi ideology, and so on. It can even be used to talk about human rights and gender representation, the role of women, the role of homosexual, the oppression that both social groups used to suffer in totalitarian regimes, and maybe even today in some societies. And you can find on the European Film Factory platform a mind map created addressing this particular issue. And the next slide, please. So I would like to summarize the importance of the film in the words of film critic Deborah Young, who said that the historic occasion in the particular film is the backdrop to a brief encounter between two lonely people. I don't know if you're familiar with the very famous David Lean movie, The Brief Encounter, which is a similar plot to strangers that meet and there is a love affair between them. Here we also have two very lonely people and their brief encounter, but this brief encounter is set against the backdrop of a very particular historic occasion. One knows he is different, the other recognizes her specialness only at the end of the film. She matures throughout the film when they both reclaim their individuality with dignity. So this film is a perfect opportunity to help our students understand how private lives of simple people, how everyday dramas of housewives, of people that lead lives outside of the historical focus are so affected and traumatized and guided by historical and political decisions and the historical period they live in. Just one word about the recognition that the film has gained, to the next slide, and then we will go to the activities. So, the film had a lot of recognition during the time. It won in France the César Award for Best Foreign Film and even a Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Film. And it was even nominated for 2 Oscars, 2 Academy Awards. It did not win any of these, as far as I can remember. It was nominated for Best Film, Foreign Film of the Year. It's 1977. And Marcello Mastroianni was nominated as a leading actor for his role in the movie. That's all from me. I will pass the floor to Anna Maria, who is going to guide you through the activities that are included in the educational kit.
Yep. Good evening. So today my part is more related to the activities and to the things we can do with our students effectively after watching this gorgeous film. I liked it very much. And as Rafal said at the beginning, seeing movie with our students can be not only challenging, but for sure should be for us a way to open a lot of topics and to discuss a lot of subjects that they can find also in books and in other contexts, but through movies maybe we can find a easier way to communicate about these topics. In the kit that you will find on the platform, you will see that there are 4 activities for this movie. But before talk a bit about each of the 4 activities, I would insist on an interesting aspect related to this film, which basically can be seen in various contexts. Because, you know, as teachers, we try to relate films with our subjects we teach and to find connections. And I must say to you that this film can be valorized in subjects as history, of course, the main one. The film can be used to teach students about World War II, fascism, Nazism, and the historical events related to that. As my colleague said, this special event, the arrival of Hitler in Italy. Also, for those of you who teach Italian language, I don't teach Italian language, so I cannot say too much, but for sure the film is a good way to study, to analyze Italian language in terms of pronunciation and in terms of the importance of non-verbal language, or the fact, as Andreas said already, that in that period it was specific the use of the second person plural and the third person singular. Also, we can move to the next slide. The film is good to be discussed, and we can do a lot of activities during the classes of philosophy, civic education, or even science. Andreas already mentioned about the radio. and the way in which the radio had an evolution during that time. Speaking of philosophy, teachers can use the film to discuss ethics, to discuss about the freedom, limits of freedom, morality, and so on. And for civic education, we can discuss about human rights, as already said, or to discuss even to compare the private life with the concepts of private life, public life. The classroom activities listed in the kit are mainly focused on history, let's say, and anthropology topics, but the subjects, the recommendations for the activities are also for different subjects as history, arts, politics, sociology, and so on. Let's move to the next slide and see the first activity. The first activity can be done as an activity during a history class. I will repeat this for each activity, but also it's very appropriate for social sciences, for example. And it's called What is a Special Day and a Normal Day? And it consists, in fact, in comparing these two concepts, let's say special day and normal day. The activity is quite simple to organize, but the level of difficulty, as you can see in the top right of the slide, is advanced, because in general, this movie suppose a certain maturity from the part of the students. So I would recommend that the activities should be done with the bigger students, but you will see the last two also can be adapted to smaller students, 11 plus. So in the case of the first activity, the first step would be to divide the class in groups and to ask students to watch different scenes. The scenes are listed here on the slide. I assume it's no use to read the title of each one, but I will mention the fact that in the kit you have also indications regarding the timing of the scenes. So this is useful because, as Rafal said at the beginning, the platform can be used also through its tools, digital tools. You can ask the students to cut effectively the parts that they have to see and work directly on the platform, see each sequence and annotate each sequence according to the task they have. In the second step, each group has basically to analyze the scene they cut and to compare what does a special and a normal day mean for Antoinetta and for Gabriele in terms of society, politics, behavior in private or public space. And then in the next steps, groups present what they found by analyzing the scenes, and after that we can ask students to go back, and we can move to the next slide to see the next steps. So for the step 4, we can ask students to go back to the groups and to try to justify or connect the aspects each group found for each person with the film language. They basically they should have in mind 3 questions. How is the person represented in terms of the acting? How is the acting supported by the mise en scène? And what is the role of the sound in each scene? After this step and after they present the conclusions, they may do a mind map and add all these informations in a mind map also directly on the platform. Optional step, even though the activity is quite long, but an optional step could be to compare the protagonist of the movie with other protagonists from other 2 movies, which are also available on the platform. And I think at La Strada of Fellini's La Strada, and also the Greek movie Stella. In the kit, you will find some suggestions about how to compare and what can you do from this point of view in terms of comparing the movies. Let's go to the next slide and to the next activity. The next activity, as you can see, has also an interrogative title: how can I create a special day? And it is an activity that can be done also for a history class, but also for an art, music, science even, or social sciences class. What suppose this activity? As I said before, this is one of the activities that can be adapted for both age groups. The first step would be to divide students according to their interest. And after that, in the next step, we should ask students to choose one person, or we should, I don't know, assign each group one person in the movie, and each group will have to do some activities. For example, we can go to the next slide to see the activities of the groups. Group 1 should draw by hand or digitally one person in one crucial moment in their private or in their in the public life. Another group should narrate one scene after the ending of the film using, for example, theater play as format. So basically, we can ask them to write a small script. Another group can have as a task to write an essay, a more developed essay. Another group can be asked to film one character alone in a closed space and use some cinematic technique. Another group can be asked to make a short documentary about the historical context. Or another group can be asked to film the scene that was narrated by the group 2, I think. The idea is that I mentioned at the beginning that we should split students in groups by their interest. So it's not I would say it's not an usual work group, but each group will work according to their interest, to their talents, and so on. That's why the activity, I think, can be adapted for different subjects in school. Okay, the third activity is also an advanced one. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, and as the title can suggest, is more related to history, but can be also easily related to culture in general, and why not to languages, and to the idea of how propaganda can be created. The ways in which propaganda can be created through different tools. So in this activity, the first step is again to split student in groups. You can see that it's not that we have a preference for working in groups, but effectively, if you are familiar with film education and working on films, you will see, and I can see by my experience, and you can agree or not, but I work better with students when in groups when watching a movie and discuss it. So in first step to this activity, we split also students in groups, and each group has to watch twice some sequences from the movie that depicts the ideological propaganda. In the kit on the platform, those sequences are specified as timing, so you will very easily find it. And we ask students to write on a piece of paper some keywords of their analysis of filmic means by focusing on some aspects as camera movement, sound, types of shot, the comments on the voiceover, and so on. In the second step, we ask students to present their analysis, focusing on some keywords regarding the film language. And after that, we can have a short, not debate, but a discussion with all the class about how camera movements and how cinematic elements can be used to serve propaganda purposes. We can move to the next slide. I think this step was on the next slide. Yes, and as a fourth step, we can also introduce to students some images. We can do some captions in the film with elements related to propaganda, and we can ask students to comment what those images represent and discuss about the symbols of Nazi ideology and so on. You have here like 6 of examples, but I'm sure that watching the movie attentively will create other occasions. You will see other images good for this purpose. And at the end of the activity, we can pass on the next slide. We can also play a bit because it's quite intensive and can be a difficult activity, but a very nice one. And at the end, we can play a bit and ask students to name 3 new terms they learned, 2 new terms they wanted to explore in future lessons, and 1 thing they found most interesting. I suppose you're familiar with this kind of exercise, 3 to 1, as a closing exercise for some lessons. And the last activity that the kit propose is, we can move to the next slide, is a bit different, not necessarily different, but is this type of activity that I'm sure you are familiar with, called project-based learning. So the time you will need to do this activity can be extended, and you can ask students to do this as a project at home, but also it is doable during 2 classes, I think. So the first step would be to divide students and to assign to each group some tasks, and explain very well what they have to do. For example, the first group will have to search information about the historical era and in their country. Basically, we talk here about comparing, let's say, what happens in the movie from the historical point of view, or with what happened in the country of students, because we assume that the film will be seen not only in Italian schools, but also in schools across Europe. So we can ask them to search informations about that period depicted in the film, but in their country. Another group, you can ask them to interview people of in their family about topics presented in the movie. And then another group, we can ask them to write an essay about how someone effectively lived between 1930 and 1975. Or we can ask them to write about an event which took place during that era, and also to express their feelings about what they describe. And also for another group, after watching the movie, we can ask them to make a poster or visual presentation about the system restrictions we can observe in the film, for example. As you can see, there are different tasks, and most of them suppose that students search for information and then use those information to create something. So that is why this is recommended as a project-based learning activity. After they realize the products, they present it to the whole class, and we can, for sure, we have a discussion, but also maybe in this case, because it is a more complex project, would be nice and important for them to have an evaluation form. We can move to the next slide, I think. Okay. This evaluation form, of course, depends of what you want to do with your students and what do you intend to do with the results of their activities. So I think that's all in terms of activities. And we still have some minutes for questions.
Everyone, thank you very much for the presentation, Anna Maria, Rafal, and Andreas. I wonder if anyone has questions indeed, and please feel free to write in the chat. Give a couple minutes, couple seconds for that. I guess not. Maybe you were very clear in your presentation.
Well, there is actually a comment on the chat from my colleague.
Now it is coming, yeah.
That everything was clear, thank you. But the students are 13, so probably she has to adapt the activities. Yes, and I don't think that the film is appropriate for 13 years old.
Yeah.
It is a bit difficult, first of all, to grasp the idea of the historical background against which the whole plot is involved. And there are issues about sexuality and gender issues. I don't know that if you can show the whole movie to 13 years old. But if you find a specific part of the film that you can project to them, and you can use one of the activities, adapting them to their age level, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that second activity about how to create a special day, or I don't know if this one was second, I think really can be easily adopted, starting from some sequences. It's not necessary to see the whole movie, but I think it's the kind of movie that we can cut and see and use only some parts of it. Okay, someone said that we'll use the film during the classes, so that's
yeah, we happy.
Was to make you use it.
Exactly.
Brilliant. I guess no other questions at this moment. All good. All right. Once again, thank you all for the great presentation. It was, as usual, very, very informative. And I'm sure the people on the call found it very good as well. Before it's just 6 sharp, we were perfectly on time. And before I close, once again, I'd like to quickly remind everyone on the call about our upcoming webinar will be next week on 24th at 4:30 Central European Time. There we will have, once again, a kit presentation just like this one, but we will also have an expert from the Climate Alliance to talk about the role of cinema in the context of environmental education. And the kit we will be presenting will be relevant as well. It's going to be on the Short Films Go Green program. Besides that, in November, we will have several more, really we have 4 more webinars pretty much every week coming up. The first one at the beginning of November will be in Polish language. We will see Rafal there, but this time he will be using his own language.
You are more than welcome to join it.
Of course. And then also in November, one final reminder, we will have a masterclass. The event actually will take place in Estonia in the context of the Black Night Film Festival, but the event will also be online, so please feel free to join. We will have David Garcia Rodriguez, the film restorer and the son of the Spanish director Ana Mariscal, who created the film El Camino. As you know, this is one of the films in our catalog for EFF. and so it's a great opportunity to hear from the restorer of this great movie. With that, it's going to be just the date will be 14th of November for the masterclass at 3 p.m. And I hope that everyone can make it to it as well. Yes, with that, I would like to wish you all a great evening once more, and thank you everyone for joining.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Wish you all the
Thank you,
best. Bye.
everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.